There we go. Welcome back in. This is Coach Mark Gottfried. I am excited today because I've got one of the all-time great basketball players, certainly in college, but even after college, but of all time in Tyler Hansbrough, the North Carolina Tar Heel, now pickleball fanatic, just like me, but we're going to have a good time today. But how you doing, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today. Everything is good.
You know, Tyler, I'm going to jump right in here and first talk about a little bit about your career at North Carolina. But in today's day, in the era of today, where so many guys don't stay in school long, I know you've been asked this question a million times and you've talked about it a lot, but probably one of the most decorated and accomplished college basketball players of all time. And I think the one that stands out to me more than anything, obviously you were the National Player of the Year, you won a national championship, but a four-time first-team All ACC player, correct? I have that right?
I think so.
I think it's right.
Sure.
And you know, Tyler, you know, I coached in the SEC for 11 years, played in the SEC. I was in the Pac-10 and then it became the Pac-12. But the ACC, for you to do that, is something. Well, first of all, I don't think no one will ever match it because nobody will stay in college that long any longer. So that's going to be one of those that, you know, it's kind of like your scoring record at North Carolina. But that's just such an amazing thing. And so congratulations on that. And when you look back on that now, does it settle in with you as far as how accomplished that is for you as an athlete?
You know, it means a lot more when I look back on my career right now, especially since I'm done playing. I think sometimes when you're playing, you're always trying to improve or work on something, and you really don't have, you know, the time to really understand what you're doing or what you've accomplished. And I think it does mean a lot more to me because when I look back at all my career and how hard I've worked and put the work in, and I've, you know, all that stuff really means a lot to me, especially at a university like North Carolina that has a really good tradition, and coming from a small town in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, where the community really supported me. I felt like, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, in my hometown also, you know, take a lot of pride in what I accomplished in my career as well.
You know, Tyler, you were such a competitor, and you know, you look back and, you know, I coached Don McLean at UCLA back in the you know, late 80s, early 90s, and similar in that, like, the competition level for him, it just was off the charts in how serious he was. But there have been a number of players throughout, you know, my tenure as a college basketball coach, but that kind of mental toughness that you kind of had, or that you do have, talk about where that might have came from for you, like parents, coaches. Is that just something you were born with? Did somebody help you develop that? But because you developed that, that's your competitive nature was at a all-time high.
Yeah, I think that does come from a lot of different aspects. I would say my family, my brothers, having two brothers that were really competitive. We grew up in the backyard playing basketball, always competing against each other. But also my hometown is you know, we're hard workers. And I feel like, you know, how you handle losing and what you learn from losing and how you apply that to how you're going to work and grow as a player is also being competitive. And I knew that, you know, if I put the work in and learn from a lot of mistakes in the past or what I needed to improve on and keep growing, I felt like, you know, it would lead me to success. But also I love competing. I love those environments. I love going into places, you know, and playing at the top level of every sport. And a lot of people, you know, being competitive is great. And I think non-competitive people will never understand how fun competition is, not only in basketball, but, you know, we talked about pickleball. Why do I love pickleball so much? Is because it's super competitive. And, you know, you can go out there, hit and giggle, but that's not all the fun. Me and my brother were just talking about how we like to go out there and compete. And people who aren't that competitive will never truly understand how, you know, the enjoyment that competition can bring somebody.
When you were young, Tyler, and I know, you know, for me, I played at Alabama and I never reached the level, you know, that you did and the accomplishments, but I look back and I look at all the times, we as athletes, when you're by yourself, you're in the gym, you're on the track, you're in the weight room, it's the summertime, all your buddies are out doing some fun stuff. And you probably growing up, there was a lot of sacrifices that you made along the way because you had a dream and a desire that you were going to be the best you could be and play at the highest level. And but those periods, a lot of people, they don't realize, they don't really know what the high achieving guys, and I've had so many on my podcast, and kind of that level of sacrifice and that level of desire maybe that I'm sure that you had growing up.
Oh yeah, man. It's especially in today where people get on social media and they see highlight clips. And, I talk to a lot of young kids and, some of these junior high school players, they all ask me, hey, when you were in the NBA, did you ever see like Kobe? What was his workouts like? And I always stop them and I said, listen, you do not have the fundamental foundation that Kobe does. There's so many things that you have to learn to even see or do the things that he does. Like, people, especially in today's game and the analytic games, is, people are shooting 3-pointers when they can't make a free throw or shoot a left-handed layup. And, there's a lot of times where, it's boring at times, but also growing up, I had an extreme imagination. I always dreamed that I would play at a big time school. I always dreamed that I could, put the work in and one day maybe play in the NBA and have all these, goals. And I kind of pictured that when I was in my backyard young or, in the gym working by myself. And, I had a really hard high school coach, and every single morning for 4 years, everybody on the team was in the gym at 5:30 in the morning. And I didn't like it as much as anybody else. I wanted to stay after school, but we all had to get up as a team, be in the gym at 5:30, whether it was just shooting free throws or whatever. So every morning for 4 years, I made 100 free throws to kind of warm up at 5:30. And then I started doing post work. And, looking back, that may be why I make my free throws and shot so well from the free throw line. All that stuff, has a huge impact.
You mentioned Kobe. And, I coached our Pan Am team back, I think it was 04 or 05, Jay Wright and I. And anyway, I went to Vegas and watched our senior team practice, which was Kobe in that group, LeBron, Kobe, Carmelo. It was an amazing group. And, I get there really early, and Kobe is already like dripping sweat. Like he's been there early, probably an hour before anybody else before the bus comes. And he's working full speed. Now, it's not like I'm just warming up and getting loose. And those are the kind of thing I think, those are the things people don't realize what guys do. It's like to reach the levels that you accomplished and you reached, even at North Carolina. You went through high school, now you're at North Carolina. You're playing at one of the greatest basketball schools, in the history of college basketball. But you still have to keep working. Like you still have to keep doing that, even though you did it in high school, waking up at 5:30 in the morning. It never ends, basically, to be at the level that you accomplished.
Yeah, and my rookie year, I remember Kobe. He used to always get to the gym early, before anybody. And I remember I wanted to get to the gym and work out. And when I went to the gym, it was me and Kobe, the ball boys down the other end. Kobe was doing what you're talking about, going through full sweat. His shot, watching him on TV, then seeing him in person for the first time and really seeing it's just so smooth. And you understand how graceful and how good of a basketball player he is when you see how hard he works and what he does. And, I gained a lot of respect because Kobe, when I was in the league, he'd already accomplished so much and, starting to age a little bit. But he was still putting in that work and working hard. And it kind of says, he was never really satisfied no matter what he accomplished. Now, for myself, I've always tried to figure out how I can help the team and what impact I can make. Obviously, Kobe's, had him, as a Hall of Famer, NBA player and all that stuff. But, stuff like that, watching that is extremely motivating, especially for a rookie like me coming into the gym and seeing him work so hard. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I was always trying to develop my game and see what type of impact I could have, putting in a lot of work. And I really wish that a lot of players, especially in college or high school, I really wish that they could see some of the things that some of these players do to put the work in and how hard they work to accomplish their goals. Because I see a lot of, especially college kids now, is their aspiration to get to the NBA and be an impactful player, but they're not. Their work ethic is not matching the goals or what they say, and that's why I say I wish that some of these kids could see all the hours and, like you're talking about, is what these guys do, when the cameras aren't on, and all the work that they put in to develop that in that end product.
And what you did, as an individual, was it always North Carolina for you when you were in high school? Were you close to other, maybe, committing, but was it always a Tar Heel?
No, it wasn't. Actually, I grew up a huge Missouri Tiger fan, and everyone in my family, we're all Tiger fans. And Missouri, there were some issues going on with the program. And then, when that was going on, my recruiting kind of opened up, and I got to know Coach Holliday for North Carolina, Joe Holliday, Coach Williams' assistant. And we actually got really close. It was actually me and Coach Holliday developed a really good relationship. And then I got to know Coach Williams, and that's ultimately why I chose North Carolina, is because of those two guys. It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to go to North Carolina. It's just because of my relationship with Coach Williams and Coach Holliday, over the recruitment process.
Tyler, a lot of people, they turn the TV on, they watch games. We watch college basketball, and we'll watch, when you played in college. But what they don't see a lot of times is the pickup games in the summer or in the fall or springtime, whatever, off season. And I can remember at UCLA, I was there 7 years. And, because we were in LA, all the pro guys would come to UCLA, and they would come up you'd have Magic and Byron Scott and James Worthy, and you'd have all these guys, and then other pros would come in because they're trying to get ready for camp. But talk a little bit to me or to everybody about the pickup games at North Carolina when the older players came back. And here you are as a freshman or sophomore, you're a younger player. What were those like for you?
Well, I mean, they were great. I mean, I remember, Sean May, he would come back. He was a big guy. Marvin Williams was a guy who always came back and trained. So he was there. Brendan Haywood would come in and out. Ray Felton would come in and out. Antoine Jameson would come in. And for, a kid in college to have that type of competition, play against other NBA guys, there were some battles out there. And, I remember Marvin Williams dunked on me so hard one time in the post, and stuff like that is good, but the competition level was high, and we'd have other, players from the other, colleges in the area come in and jump in as well. So that was good, but there was always high level pickup games, and sometimes they would get a little chippy, from the physicality and, trash talking, which I also kind of love. But, there was always great competition. And I really do feel like that had a huge impact, because also we got to work out with them skill-wise, and they would show us different stuff and, different moves. We'd work out, shoot with them. So that had a huge impact, yeah.
Tyler, let me ask you this one. This is being interesting because when I was at UCLA, and I was there 7 years, and the tradition, the expectation at UCLA is so high, very similar to North Carolina. And I think there's a handful of schools in America like that. There's not a bunch, but there's some. And I think even our players at UCLA, they felt that. They felt it all. It's not something they talked about, but they knew the standard was so high at UCLA. And, we were able to win a national championship in '95, which was amazing. But in their mind, they always were working because there was I don't know if it was pressure, but there was a little bit something more than it was if you were at another, Power 5 school. Did you feel that at Carolina because the tradition, the expectations were so high that you guys then had to even be kept, you just have to kept getting better, I would say.
Yeah. I don't think I felt that pressure. I think I was a little oblivious to some of the, the fans and a little bit of the pressure outside. I tried the best I could to block that out. Or I was just clueless. I didn't really, look into it much. I knew we had a huge fan base, which was great. But, being a kid from Missouri, I didn't feel the pressure like a lot of other people may have felt like from that aspect. Now, I will say when I played in the NBA, I put a lot of expectations and pressure on myself because I had such a good college career that I think that was a little counterproductive to some of my things in the NBA early on. But that's the only type of pressure I think I kind of felt from that aspect.
Did you ever feel, Tyler, that, so many kids go out early? And it's always interesting to me. And I worked for the Mavericks for a couple years or a year and a half. And the lure of taking all these young kids, like, okay, we're going to take all these young, 19-year-olds, and they almost get more time too. Because if I draft a young player, I know ahead of time he's probably not ready. It's going to take him 2 or 3 years to get his feet wet and really understand the league. And then you've got the older guys like yourself, who you entered the NBA as an older player instead of an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, and probably you didn't have as much grace as far as, okay, we get to let this guy develop because the expectation is you got to play now. Like, you're a little bit older. But did you ever look back? None of us look back. We can't change the past. But as a younger player compared to an older player, entering the NBA, kind of if you weigh those two against each other?
Well, I think, like myself, I think that, some of these younger players that got drafted so high, they were, they would have extreme athletic qualities. And for me, myself, I didn't have the athleticism that a lot of these, NBA guys would kind of say, oh, this guy is going to be, we can really develop him. Or I didn't have the physical tools like you, a guy like I played with Roy Hibbert, who, when he got drafted, even though he was an older player, he was like 7'1", 7'2". But he was kind of a project, and, his transition wasn't all that smooth. But when I was playing with him, you can make an argument. Roy was probably one of the best centers in the NBA. He was an all-star. He took care. He could pass. He could score. He could he was a project, and he was one of those older guys that had the physical qualities that a team took a chance on and did develop a little bit. But I do think there's a huge, difference in between a guy who's been in the NBA that has gone to school for 3 or 4 years versus a guy that's 18 or 19. And I say that from a discipline standpoint. Mm-hmm. You can always tell that somebody who's been coached a little bit longer in college and probably been coached hard, I think you can tell a big difference between that guy and a young 18-year-old, 19-year-old, as far as the maturity and how they handle coaching, which has a huge, is a huge deal. I played with, I'll use Lance Stevenson as an example. I was on the Pacers when he was a rookie. Now, he was a young guy when he got drafted. Wasn't the most disciplined guy, but, he was one of those guys that he had a pretty good NBA career, but, his first 2 years, it was not smooth. And I will say, not everyone has that. These young kids that leave to go to the NBA, their story doesn't always end up being, right, the best case scenario. So I think it depends, how you handle that transition. And I do think there makes a big difference between, drafting a kid that's been in college for 3 or 4 years, that's had a good coach and has been disciplined, versus somebody who's just an athletic freak that's, not the most mature around 19 or 20. I think maybe, being in school a little bit longer could help some of those guys make that transition. But the problem I have right now, in particular with college, is a transfer portal. Mm-hmm. And I think that kids aren't being coached in the same aspect as they were when I was in college. And that's one thing I don't like about the transfer portal, is because I think that, so much of college is going to school and having a really good coach discipline you. I think that's super important, and teach basketball. And I think a lot of coaches are afraid to really coach or hurt a kid's feelings just because they're going to jump into the portal. And that's a reason why I'm not a big fan of the portal.
You know, Tyler, you bring up a great point, and you talk about the portal in NCAA collegiate sports along with NIL, and the two of them at the same time. I'm sure in your world and your universe, you guys talk about it all the time. I do in mine. I've had coaches, even on my podcast, Jay Wright or Jim Herrick, and Jim Boeheim and Gary Williams, and I can go on and on and on. And the thing that we all, as coaches, feel like that we're going to miss, or that we've lost probably, is it's the guys like yourself, and that coaching staff at North Carolina. You know, they had a chance to really get to know you, develop you, help you. You were able to progress as a player, as a person, you know, and grow up. And you got coached hard. You were disciplined, and we feel a little bit like we've lost it. And I don't know that it's coming back with the portal and the NIL, and everything's this 1-year transaction right now. And I just don't know at the end of the day if it's what's best for young people. You know, yeah, everybody makes some money. Great. I'm glad you're making money, and you guys should. It's like you should have been able to make some money. We get that. I get that. We all get that. But when you couple it with the portal at the same time, it just seems to me like in college athletics, we're going to lose that ability to really impact a young person in the way that I'm sure that Roy and the staff, you know, helped impact you. Would you agree?
I agree. I think the portal NIL, what it's done is really taken away the pride as well. You have players that went to certain schools that would represent and carry on that pride. It's kind of lost that effect as well. And I will say that I always say, you know, what's going on in college sports right now? It's basically professional sports with a free agency every single offseason. It's a 1-year deal, free agency with no contracts. It's a wild, wild west. Could you imagine an NBA if they only did 1-year deals and they had free agency? It would be a mess. I still think there's a lot of smoothing out to be. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm against NIL. I do think that the portal, there's a lot of issues with the portal. I think the portal really needs to be cleaned up. But yeah, you're right. You know, it does hurt, you know, guys, you know, from my aspect, and especially, you know, the 4-year guys. And, you know, as a fan, people used to watch these freshmen come in, and then by the time they're senior, they get to, you know, you see the development, you could see the team change, and you can kind of watch a player that went to these programs and kind of see them develop. You're not really seeing that much anymore. And so, yeah, I do. I really feel like it has hurt. I agree with you on that.
You know, also, Tyler, it's interesting. And some of the coaches I talk to a lot, and I've got a lot of friends, obviously, still coaching. I've said exactly what you said. Exactly. It's like pro sports having free agency every year, and you know, guys just changing teams every single year. If it doesn't go my way, if I'm not getting the ball enough, if I'm a wide receiver and they don't throw it to me enough, I'm going to go into portal. I'm going to find another place. You know, it's a never-ending thing. But it's even actually, I think, even one more step worse in that it's not even a year contract. I think there are players right now who agree to an NIL deal through a school, and a month later, they want to throw that one away and get a new one. I want a new one right now. Hey, I just scored 39 points back to back, and hey, I need more money. That deal we talked about back in the summertime it's no good anymore. I want even more. So it's even more fluent than a lot of people at home realize, and it just has to drive people crazy after a while. I can't imagine coaching that somebody just walks in your office every 2 or 3 weeks and says, "Hey, by the way, can you get me an autograph signing deal? I need an extra $50,000. Like, whoa, hold on. We had a deal. We had one. We agreed. So I think it can even, like you said, until we get it cleaned up and they can figure it out. I just think it's real chaos right now. I'm not a big fan of the way it's set up today, right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, there's some things that really need to be cleaned up, and Man, I could really go on in the NCAA. I just think that a lot of things that they need to change are very simple, and they could just walk in there today, say, hey, we're making these changes, we're making these changes, but they drag it on forever. And I've always said, hey, listen, these guys at the NCAA, they're making good amount of money. They can go in there and just make these changes. There's no reason why we should wait and push it on and drag all this stuff on. But yeah, there's a big cleaning up process, especially with the portal. I'm with you guys. They have a problem. They don't like the way things are going, and they don't look into the mirror and try to improve or work on their game. Instead, they're just taking, hey, you know what? I'm going to enter the portal, and they go to a different school and they're having the same exact problem. Then they're going to enter the portal again. At what point do you actually work on your game and say, you know what? I'm going to stick through this. I'm going to try and improve and do what I can to help this team, because I can tell you there's a lot of professional NBA players that have had really good careers that have been in bad situations where they didn't get the playing time they wanted, and they just couldn't jump into the portal. They had to figure out, hey, how can I have a positive impact on the game when I get in? And I think a lot of kids need to do that.
And, Tyler, a lot of times the answer is just get better. It's not, this is not rocket science. Sometimes, if somebody's not playing a lot, or they're not playing as much, or they're not starting lineup. And I've told this story. I had a mother call me at NC State, kind of complaining their son's not in the lineup. And the answer is just, how about get better, play more? That's really the answer. You get better, and your son will play more. How about that one? I mean, and a lot of guys, they're not committed to getting better. They're just hunting for another situation. It's like AAU basketball. If I'm not really shining on this AAU team, then next weekend I'll just go play for that team over there. And I just don't know that, again, when you boil it down for the young person, that's what's best for them. And it really worries me in the future, because I just don't know that we're producing or helping produce the type of young people that – and I'm all for guys getting paid. Like yourself, you'd have probably made a lot of money, but the portal alongside of it together, the two combined, I just think is a recipe for disaster long-term for these young guys. And that's my kind of beef on that. So let me ask you this one, Tyler. How about if you had to go on the road and win a game in college, okay, and you walked back to that locker room and you were fired up, man, would that be in Rupp Arena or in Cameron Indoor?
Never lost it either.
First of all, that's a great comment right there.
At this point in my life, it would be Rupp Arena, because I've been doing a little college analyst work, and the fans at Kentucky have been by far the most delusional fan base I've ever come across in my life. And they get fired up, and I get fired up at them as well. So there's no question it would be at Rupp. Right now, if I had to go and play another college game with my bad knees and my bad health, I'd be getting fired up at Rupp.
So I've taken teams into Cameron and won, into the Dean Dome and won, and into Rupp and won. And at Kentucky, it's like in church at the end of the game. It's so quiet in there. I can remember having teams go in there and win at Rupp, and for me, I loved winning it all up, but it would probably be Kentucky as well. Their fan base, I love them, and they've been great, but they're just a little different, and they can't handle it. They cannot handle it, and so that's a funny one. Talk to me, Tyler, about your brother Ben. A lot of people don't. They followed your career, and people that are close to you obviously know about Ben. But I coached at Alabama, coached against him when he was at Mississippi State. Then he goes to Notre Dame. But the bond you two have, I'm sure there was probably never a rivalry. You probably pushed each other your whole career, but to have a brother that loved to play and was competitive like you, trust me, I've coached against him. But talk a little bit about that relationship with Ben.
Yeah. Ben's by far one of the most competitive people I know, and we grew up playing same high school team. Ben's he's got a different personality than me. He'll talk trash and get into it with a lot of people. I was never a big trash talker, but Ben, he will mix it up a little bit, and he's one of my all-time favorite teammates. By the way, So we played high school together, really good in high school. He went to Mississippi State, and at the time, Mississippi State was the only, a big time Division I offer that he had. So he went there, played a year, and then he transferred to Notre Dame after that year. Mississippi State went on Big East Player of the Year. Loved Mississippi State. Loved playing for Coach Bray there. And after that, he played with me as my teammate for 1 year at the Pacers, which was a really cool experience playing with my brother in the NBA. And then he went overseas and played for 3 or 4 years in Spain. And, he hung it up, and he's playing pickleball in Kentucky. He lives in Kentucky with him and his kids and his family. And I still see him a lot. So, yeah, we battle it out on the pickleball courts now. So.
Well, he was a great player as well. Like you said, Big East Player of the Year. So the two of you together, that's quite an accomplishment. All right, now we're going to talk about the fun stuff, the good stuff. Talked a lot about basketball, and people that know me well in my world, they think I've lost my mind at my age because I'm playing pickleball every day, and I can't get enough, and I want to play every morning. I played this morning for 2.5 hours. And how did you get started playing pickleball? A guy like you at your size, and you've had this. You're an amazing athlete, but how did you get going with pickleball?
So actually, my brother played tennis. He likes tennis, and so him and his wife were playing tennis. And I grew up playing a lot of ping pong. We always played ping pong, and I love ping pong. And then somehow, tennis requires a ton of skill. So there wasn't like I was going to pick up a racket and go play tennis. So pickleball was like in between. And so pickleball was getting kind of popular. So one day we're like, hey, let's get some paddles to go play. And I can tell you from the first time we went to the pickleball courts, I was addicted. I mean, I started going, I had just stopped playing basketball. I had retired, some knee issues. So I stopped playing, and I had this there's a lot of free time just kind of opened up for me. And so I went to Kentucky. We started playing pickleball. I came back to North Carolina, and I found this park. And I remember going out to the park, and, 11 o'clock in the morning, on like a Wednesday, it's, pretty much everyone that's retired, the older ladies were out there. And these 70-year-old older ladies were they had me in full sweats. Martha was just like having me move around the whole court. I was exhausted, and I was getting worked, and I couldn't believe it. And so I went out there every single day playing with them. Eventually, I started drilling, working on my game, and kind of advancing. And so now, I've got, my game's really kind of taken off. I've really improved that, come a long way from getting my butt kicked from the 70-year-old ladies. And, now we've got a great group of guys. I play with Brian Rosenthal, who, he runs the Raleigh Pro Tennis League here, and we put on exhibitions before some of these big-time matches. We draw great crowds. We talk a lot of trash. And I always tell people when I'm really into I hate that it's called pickleball because no one really takes it seriously.
That's right.
Because of the name. It sounds so goofy. But, it's I'm like you. I can't get enough of it. There's trash talk. It's one of the most competitive sports I've been around. It has every aspect to it that I love.
It's amazing, Tyler, because you're so right. In tennis, you got to throw the ball up to serve it. You got to really, kind of perfect the serve. In pickleball, you just, get your wrist under the ball and you get it across there and get it in. And from there, you got to play. But when I first started playing, and a little bit like you, I stepped onto a court and people were just, it was wax on, wax off. They were just destroying me left and right. And but then you start learning. And then I've told some people, and most people that we're going to educate them here as we talk, but drops and dinks. Until you learn how to drop it, until you learn how to dink it, you can tell me all you want about how hard you can hit it, and you're not going to be very good. So would you agree with that? Like learning how to really drop the ball from the back, a third shot or fifth shot drop, or just to drop it, or to dink it, the little dinks across the net, then people might look at it and go, that's easy. Come on, man. You're just patting the ball,
Yeah.
But there's such a skill to it and putting people at a disadvantage, and then the game will speed up from there. Talk about that part, the dinks and the drops.
I started getting my drops pretty good. Dinking, it took me a while to really kind of get my dink game a lot better because – if you get in a dink game, I could get 3 or 4 dinks in, then I would start popping them up. And so around the kitchen area, close to the net, for people who don't know, you want to keep the ball low and you want to drop it in the non-volley zone where you can't step unless the ball has touched that area first or hit the ground. And if you don't have your dinks right or you popped up, you're putting yourself in extreme vulnerability of getting body bagged. That's where somebody takes it out of the air and just sends it right back to you, right at your body, and hits you. And so, and that's what I really didn't. My dinks took a while, and that's why I was getting pretty, waxed by the, kind of the retirement community, is because, my dink game took a while to come on. And so if you don't have your dinks right, you're going to get exposed, especially the third shot drop is a super important skill. But that one came a lot easier than the dinking for me.
So we've got a guy who lives right here in Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, which we're connected to Costa Mesa right here, Newport and Costa Mesa. But I've got a young guy. I've had him on my show here on the podcast, Connor Garnett. And Connor, I think right now is ranked 4th in the world. And I've watched Connor play a lot in person. And you're talking about a top 5 player in the world in this sport. And the ability to put the ball where he wants to put it. And, take a hard shot. If I'm way in the back, kind of in the baseline, and you really hit one and you've got me pushed way far back, he still has the ability to get from there to drop it to where he can get back to the kitchen line. But he is so good, and all these guys at the top level like that, they're so good at placing the ball. They place it wherever they want to place it, and then they're on offense all the time. And so it's so fun to watch. Like when I go watch him play, I just am sitting there sometimes like, wow, I mean, this guy's good. Do you feel the same when you watch guys like that?
Yeah, so Connor Garnett, he's one of the best two-handed. He has one of the best two-handed drives and resets in the game. They call him Tui Nation. Yeah, I'm familiar with this game. And so I always tell people is like, you should go watch the pros play pickleball, is because their hands are so fast. And it's kind of like hockey to me. Hockey's not all that great on TV, but when you go to watch pickleball in person, just like hockey, you will see what we're talking about. The ability to kind of put the ball where they want it, to kind of neutralize somebody who's on the, offense or really attacking them, to put the ball in a position where the ball can't be attacked, where they can get back to the kitchen and kind of get back into those dinking wars. Is just a skill, and it's a chess match. You've got to see what your opponent does, where their weaknesses are. And a guy like Connor, I mean, his two-handed drive is one. Is just unbelievable. He's unbelievable. You're right. One of the best singles players in the world too. He's a jitterbug out there. But yeah, in the hand speed that the pros have, I just wish that the TV could pick it up, because it's amazing. And one of the cool things about, these professional pickleball tournaments and these amateur tournaments, it's one of the only professional sports where you can go and play and warm up, and on the court beside you, you have one of the best players in the world.
Right. You
see players from all different skills, and it's one of the great things about pickleball is you can play with a huge wide range of people. You can play with, somebody from 20 years older, 20 years younger. It brings a lot of people together, and you can all play. It's not that hard to learn. It's hard to master, but anybody can play with anybody. And it's really cool when you go to these big time pickleball tournaments to see some of these pros and how good they are as well.
Have you found, Tyler, for yourself, let's say a couple years ago, you're playing pickleball and you're getting, like we all did, you have to start somewhere. And, I did the same. I had people just beating me to death. And I kept thinking, what in the world? I can get better. But then now I go back and I play with some of those people. And I'm not a great player, but I definitely can see the improvement level that I've made. Do you see that? Like if you go back and play against somebody that you maybe played against a couple years ago that beat you pretty easily, and then here you are today, because you also have, obviously the size and all that, but you have the competitive drive too that made you a great basketball player that you're also applying into pickleball, that not everybody has that. that level of competitive spirit maybe that you have. So as your game has gotten better, do you see that as you go back?
There's so much, I watched film when I first started, some games and I just laugh. You can see like, diving on the pickleball court. I dove for a ball one time. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever done. And the thought of, watching that video and thinking that I was going to hit that ball was hilarious. But, one thing a lot of people don't talk about is hitting out balls and having the ability to read when a ball is going to go out is a huge thing in pickleball. And that's a skill that I'm trying to get better at and trying to learn a lot more, which I definitely improved. But yeah, if I go back to those parks where I originally started playing, you could see the improvement. I've got so many areas. I take pickleball so serious. I have different things that I'm trying to work on, kind of when I go and drill and different aspects of the game. And, right now I'm trying to have a real aggressive serve. And so to watch my serve from maybe a year or two ago to now is just kind of almost laughable because it's a totally different, I have a very, my serve is very aggressive and it's, it's really improved, big aspect of my game as well. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I can see that I've definitely improved on, especially my dinking as well.
Tyler, do you have a goal or desire? I mean, we all can say things, but like deep in your gut, like, okay, phase 2, now this is my second sport. You obviously were a great basketball player, but is there a desire or a goal to say, you know what, I want to be on the tour, like I want to get there? Can you do that? Are you in your mind, like we all know, like sometimes as a player in basketball, I know some guys can't play in the pros. They just can't. They're not good enough, not going to be good enough, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But for you with pickleball, do you sense that a little bit?
Well, I do know that I'll never be as good as I want in pickleball. But it's kind of like golf from that aspect. But I just don't think that my body will allow it. I think I'm gotten a little bit older and I've had some injuries where I just can't play or compete. And I think as a sport of pickleball has really grown, I think you're going to see a lot more athletic younger kids that have so much tennis background. I don't think it's going to be feasible for me to really compete against those guys. But I do, have an aspiration of, being competitive at the highest amateur level in pickleball. I think that would be really fun. But I don't see myself being able to compete against the Connor Garnetts of the world. Yeah. It's just too much experience. He has a lot of youth, which I don't have anymore.
Yes, they do. When I travel, you're going to laugh. People that are going to watch or listen to this podcast, they'll laugh at me. I take my paddle. I got my paddle. I got balls. I mean, everywhere I go to Columbus, Ohio. I got my paddle with me, and I've got guys that are going to help. We're going to go play. And I go back to Raleigh, or if I go out here in California, or if I go to Mobile, Alabama. And but talk about in Raleigh, like what is available in Raleigh for people that love to play pickleball? I'm sure it's popping up everywhere, but like most places in the country.
Yeah, and we there's a facility, Pickles and Play here, where me and a bunch of my buddies, like I talked about, some former tennis guys have converted over to pickleball. One of our mutual friends, Brian Rosenthal, who played tennis at State, and we've got a good group of guys that we all get and talk smack and kind of play a lot, but we do these exhibitions too before he runs the Raleigh Tennis Pro League, and we put on these exos before, and people come out, we talk trash, we do all these different things. That's real exciting. But the good thing about pickleball is kind of, you mentioned it, paddles aren't all that expensive. Now, if you want to be real competitive like me, you'll go through every paddle out there and spend a lot of money on it. But there's a park almost anywhere, and you can just pull up and go play. As long as, you bring your paddle and a few balls, you'll be fine. But there's places all over Raleigh, Method Road, Ephesus Park. Those are great places to play if you want to go indoor. If you play indoor pickleball too much, it will really spoil you because you don't have the wind, you don't have the sun, the conditions are perfect. Then you find out you play indoor enough, you can go outside. You'll complain about everything, the wind, the sun, whatever, the heat. humidity, all that stuff. But yeah, right now I'm really enjoying the Pickles and Play indoor facility. And there's a new place that's opening up called Pinpoint in Raleigh. It's going to be having tons of pickleball courts. Got one of my partners, Heartland Jones, who's going to be the pro there. He's a really good dude, really good pickleball player. I played in a tournament with him. They're going to have a really good facility. So there's a ton of places in the Triangle, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham area to play.
Tyler, have you found, we kind of talked about it early on just a little bit, but have you found for you when you stopped playing basketball, and for all of us that have played and you get to a certain point, I got drafted by the Pistons in and out, about a year and a half, but when I was done, it was a little hard for me to find something I could compete at. I was younger then and I could still play basketball, but for a lot of us as we get a little bit older, and that's why a lot of guys play golf. Golf, you can compete against yourself and compete against other people, but the competitive part, first of all, you're competing against other people, but then the competitive part against yourself. You're competing against yourself every day. Have you found pickleball to be something that kind of fills that void or that gap that you may have had being a great college and a great professional basketball player?
Yeah. Pickleball came to me in the I picked up pickleball at the right time in my life. I had just retired from playing basketball, and I just went. I was sitting on I didn't have a lot to do, and I was like, man, what am I going to do? I have all this time now, and that's just when the time I started getting into pickleball. I was going through a big transition in my life, and pickleball in a way for me kind of took my mind away from a lot of the stuff or a lot of the anxiety about what's next, and so I would always go to the court, and, I had a great group of friends that a community I was talking to. I had developed a lot of friendships. And so a lot of ways, pickleball, I had replaced that aspect, but also, I had built a huge friend base and made a lot of friends in pickleball where, that aspect, the social aspect, and also the trying to improve and grow my game, and also the competitive void from not having basketball. Definitely pickleball provided that for me in my life.
So the guys and gals that might be playing against you, obviously they're going to look across the net and see, okay, this guy's about 6'9" and he's a great athlete. But do most of them know your nickname was Psycho? So that when you're playing pickleball, that I'm playing against a guy that might just drill me. I mean, he's going to put me in a body bag if I'm not careful, because that was his nickname while he played in college.
Hey, Coach, I would tell you one of my favorite things on the pickleball court. You ever nasty Nelson somebody?
No.
I'm not so nasty Nelson. For people who don't know, is when you're serving and you're serving to the other person across the court. Well, their teammate is up by the net, and you can serve directly at them and hit them with the pickleball, and you get the point. It's not the most great pickleball etiquette thing to do, but it's one of my favorite moves. And so I would low-key, if somebody's not paying attention, I would missile the ball as hard as I could trying to hit them. But when I first started playing, I wasn't that accurate. So, you never know where the pickleball is going to go. But now I've got it kind of dialed in. And so if the team's not paying attention, I'll just missile one at them. And, boy, the smack talk and the look on their face once I get them that's something else. I love that move. But around here, they kind of know my nickname and know how competitive I am. And but the Nasty Nelson kind of is a great example of that.
Someone put a Nasty Nelson on me the other day. I wasn't paying attention at all, standing there, and I just got drilled with the ball. And I'm looking over there like, what are you doing, man? And they're like, point. Gotcha.
Oh, yeah. I've been Nasty Nelson, too. It's not a great feeling.
Do you have any of your former guys you played with in college or after, or pros, or do you have anybody like that loves to play? Or has anybody really gotten into the pickleball game like you have, to the extent you have?
Not to the extent I have, but Tyler Zeller, I played with him a few times. He played tennis in high school, so he's okay. Luke May, he enjoys it. I know his brother, his whole family likes it. I played with Luke's dad, who he doesn't move too well, but he's got very fast hands. Those guys, they really enjoy it. But no one that I've played with, they all joke with me and kind of give me a little crap about it because it's called pickleball, but I want to get him out there soon.
The May family, you may not even realize this. I recruited Luke really hard, and he had scholarship offers for a long time, and I kept knowing. I said, as soon as Roy offers him, he's going to North Carolina because his dad went there, and then obviously his brother, and they've got just such a great athletic family. But I bet you they could be good. I bet you he could be really good, and his brother. Oh, yeah. If they ever really decided to play pickleball, they would really probably pick it up because he's such a good athlete. He's a smart. They all are smart guys like that. So. Who knows? But it's an amazing game. I play almost every day. I'm playing in Southern California where it's 75 and sunny every day, and I can't get enough. I can't get enough, Tyler. It's just one of those things for me at my age to find something I can play, be competitive at. It's social. I'm meeting people. I'm getting better. I'm improving. I'm competing against all the things that we love is, being involved in athletics our whole life. So, for me, I can't get enough of it, man. It's fun. I'm sure you probably feel the same way. You probably want to play every day.
Yeah, it's the most addicting sport I've ever played. And I tell people, in golf, they say, hey, you got the bug. It's the same thing. I think it's maybe a little bit more addicting than golf. But, yeah, I'm with you. I'm right there with you, Coach.
All right, we're going to end it right here, but this is a great question I'm going to ask you right now. All right, you've probably, I'm going to guess at some point in time, well, I know you've watched, I'm sure in pickup games you played against number 23, North Carolina. You've probably been asked this one. And then you played against and, alongside, and you've been around Kobe many, many, many times. If you had to win a game, and I know you got North Carolina blood in your system, but if you had to win the game, and you only could take one of those two guys. And I'm going to tell you, because I asked Robert Ory this question the other day, but if you had to win the game, if you lose the game, you're never allowed in the gym ever again the rest of your life. So you have to win this game, and you can only pick Kobe or Michael. Who are you picking?
Well, that's a tough one. I'm actually going to go with MJ. I grew up, for me, it's Jordan. And Kobe's great. He's amazing. But I think Kobe – he tried to do everything. He was a study of Jordan. He tried to, everything he did, he tried to model after Jordan, or a lot of what he did. Jordan. It's Jordan for me.
There you go. Well, I'm going to tell you, Tyler, it would be Jordan for me too. I love Kobe now. I'm a Kobe guy, but I don't think anybody that's put on a jersey can do what number 23 did. Just to me, that one's going to be, it's going to be awfully hard. And there's a younger generation now that think LeBron's in that group, and I can't get there. I just can't get there. I'm staying with 23. The whole way. But Tyler, man, I've enjoyed this. This has been fun. I'm excited. When I come back to Raleigh, I don't get there often, but I'm going to find you, and we're going to play pickleball, and you're probably going to body bag me a few times, but that's okay. I'll handle it. And if you come to the West, you got to bring your paddle and
I'll bring it. It goes everywhere I go, just like you. So.
Well, man, I've enjoyed it, and good luck to you, man. Keep working, and you're doing a great job, too, with college basketball, and your insights are amazing, Tyler. And, the game needs people like yourself. The game needs somebody like yourself who has credibility that will not be afraid to speak out, which I enjoy that about you as, usually through the basketball season. So keep that going as well.
I appreciate that, Coach. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Tyler. Tyler Hansbrough, thank you very much for being on the Front Row Podcast with Coach Mark Gottfried. Thank you.